Hey, you're back. You found your way to Sunday Morning Cafe, that ongoing conversation on how to build and maintain resilience during these challenging times. In her book, Resilience, researcher Froma Walsh said that belief systems are the heart and soul of resilience. And so in today's exercise, I will introduce a daily resilience practice where I'll invite you to bring your sense of the sacred with you. Now, the way you use that word might have something to do with what you experience in a church or a synagogue or a temple, but it might also be your use of that word sacred has a looser quality to it, like maybe Henry David Thoreau had, where there's a sense of the sacred in nature or in relationships. Whatever that term means for you, I invite you to go ahead, go get your chair or your cushion or your stool. Come back and join me. I'm going to give you just a few seconds to do that and bring that sense of what you mean by the sacred with you. Welcome back. Go ahead and get yourself into a posture that is good for meditation. Spine good and straight, comfortable, where you can hold that 5 or 10 minutes. What I want you to imagine is that I've invited you to come with me here in my hometown of St. Louis to see the Mississippi River, and probably we'd go downtown to see it, and if we stood next to each other, we might be looking at that river, and what we might see is logs bobbing up and down on their way downriver, sticks or leaves or something like that, and we might think, there, we've seen the river. But actually what we saw was the surface of the river. Because what we would know is that the billions of gallons of water that make their way down that waterway every year are in the deeper currents, that place where the human eye can't see it. Well, I'd like to maintain that that's how our soul's put together. When we have a sit for mindfulness practice and shut our eyes, we're mostly aware of what happens on the surface of our soul. You know, those thoughts that float on down the river, those mental pictures, those feelings, mad, sad, glad, scared, physical sensations. But that deeper place is the place I want to get to today. That place where the boundless sense of loving presence makes contact with our soul. What many of you know as God, and others know by other names than that. I invite you now to a methodology that I call emptying prayer. Some call it apophatic prayer, some call it centering prayer, a form of mindfulness that utilizes a sacred word. So if you could locate a sacred word, I'm just going to choose one that's kind of universally used in every religious tradition, the word light. It's used to symbolize God. So if you take that word light and begin to breathe it in with your breath and out with your breath, just like this, light. 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 And when a thought comes, that's all right. Don't chase that thought away and don't cling to it. Just let it float on down the river by means of coming back to your sacred anchoring word. Light. Light. If a mental picture should come, don't fight it, but don't cling to it either. Just let it float on down the river by means of coming back to your anchoring word, light. Or if you want, my light. Light. And you may hear noises in the background that are very similar to the kind of noise that our intellect or our imagination makes. That's okay. Again, just breathe in your anchoring word, light, light. So that little by little, wordlessly, thoughtlessly, and imagelessly, you will just dwell in that place where the sacred is for you. A lot like an old couple on a dock enjoying a cup of coffee while they're watching the sunset. It's not that they don't have anything to say to each other, it's just that they don't need to say anything to enjoy each other's presence. Light. Light. My light. And it could be that that anchoring word isn't the word you would choose. Maybe you'd pick a different word like peace. Or maybe that Hebrew word shalom, which roughly translated kind of comes out like peace. Or the Sanskrit salam, peace. Peace. Again, any thought comes? Breathe more deeply your anchoring word, peace. Peace. Or maybe a sacred name for God would be more to your liking. You might pick the word Abba. Abba. And maybe your heart wants to pronounce that a way a small child calls out for a parent. Abba. Abba. Or maybe it's more the sensibility of a postal worker who's been working in a cold, cold winter's day who found her way to a nice hot shower. Abba. Abba. Again, the noise of your mind or your imagination is okay. Don't fight it, don't cling to it. Just more deeply breathe in that anchoring word. Or maybe there's a better anchoring word for you that you're thinking of right now from a piece of sacred literature or some other word. Just begin to breathe that in now. Let's create space for that. You'd want to spend maybe 10 minutes with this, and over the course of a month to extend the time you take with this, all the way up to 20 minutes if you want. But even if you take 5 minutes with it, when it comes time to bring this to a conclusion, you might take a prayer and breathe in each phrase of that prayer, or maybe a poem, one phrase at a time. I'll go ahead and utilize a 500-year-old prayer right now, and I'll pray those words out loud, and I invite you to quietly take each phrase in the way a hot mug of water takes in a tea bag, being infused with the color and the flavor and the aroma of that tea. These are words that Francis of Assisi came up with. Make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's darkness, light. Again, we're going to conclude this meditation by executing a smile. And when you're ready to open your eyes, just pay attention to how that was for you. And I invite you to, if it's to your liking, to play with this week. Try this on once a day for 5-10 minutes. And over the course of time, see how this one fits. And I'll see you next week as we continue our conversation on resilience.